Greetings, and salutations, one and all. Happy hump day to you. Welcome to the show. It's the end of the night shift week, and it's the thing we call Real Talk Wednesday. Want to say big ups to everyone who have it locked right now. Those who are tuned in on rockbox.net and all the Rockbox affiliates. Those who are tuned in on clintonlindsay.com, the Foundation Radio Network. Those who are on PEMG TV. Those who are on One Harmony Radio across the pond. Top of the morning to you. And of course, if you're on kevinstew.com, welcome. Glad to have you all. Couldn't do it without you, wouldn't even want to try. Big ups, Marlon, reggae music editor extraordinaire. Wicked show as usual. Host of Real Rockers happens every Monday and Wednesday right before my show. I think it's a perfect intro to my show because it gets people nice and mellow, and then I get to top off the night. Yeah, I feel it works. Thank you, Marlon, for doing what you do. Kicking it off with the Ricardo Drew and Second Star. It's called Wayward. And tonight in Real Talk, we're paying homage to mental health awareness. And we're gonna put our all in it tonight, yeah?
Make everyone see girl never and everyone agree. Yeah, so do that thing never me, girl. My eyes set on you like a target. I want pull up on you like a magnet. I'm wondering, girl, if you have it. Cause I look and I see everybody's girl. So baby girl, roll the bambala. Do that thing, girl, roll the bambala. Second side, you in combination. We love the nation, cause look at woman. Look around, look around. Everybody, having fun. Look at woman, look around. Working it just like you should. Fire start when you rub it. There's plenty friction on the wood. We going on till the party done. Right with the moon, set with the sun. If you see me falling on the ground, it must be the rum. Tell me how you live it, we gon' live it up. If the thing needs turning, we gon' turn it up. One thing we not giving, we not giving on. We going on. Look at woman, look around.
Good evening, hashtag happy. As we I wait our first guest to connect. I did some research. And thanks to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, I realized that I'm not the only one. But millions, I used millions with an M. Millions of Americans are affected by mental health conditions every year. That sounds strange? It probably shouldn't. Because we should be paying attention. And, you know, if we just watch the news, we should be well aware of what is happening. So it is not that strange when you hear information like that. It shouldn't be that strange. But it's one of those harsh realities that really have to face. It's real. Mental health issues in the US is real. And we shouldn't try to sugarcoat it or anything like that. I want to say special thanks to our friends over there in Serendipity Counseling LLC for regular reminders about mental health awareness. Big ups to you guys over Serendipity LLC. Thank you. All right. As we wait for first of our guests to call in to connect, when it comes to the prevalence of mental illness, here are some mind-blowing statistics for you. Round about 43.8 million Americans, just about 18.5%, or what works out to be somewhere in the region of 1 in 5 Americans, not globally, Americans, they experience mental illness in any given year. 1 in 5. Approximately 1 in 25 adults in the US experience a serious mental illness in a given year that substantially interferes with or limits one or more major life activities. Approximately 1 in 5 youth aged 13 to 18. So these are our teens, a majority of our teen years. 1 in 5 experiences a severe mental disorder at some point during their life. For children aged 8 through 15, the estimate is 13%. So for youth 13 through 18, it's about 21.4%. Almost half that for children aged 8 to 15. Yeah, that's serious. 1.1% of adults in the US live with schizophrenia. 2.6% of adults live with bipolar disorder. 6.9%, roughly 16 million adults in the US had at least one major depressive episode in the last year. 18.1% of adults in the US experience an anxiety disorder such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder, that's our OCDers, and specific phobias, and among the 20.2 million among the 20.2 million adults in the US who experience a substance use disorder, half of that had a co-occurring mental illness. So 20 million adults experience a substance use disorder, and half of that had a co-occurring mental illness. Something else was going on. Those are some scary statistics, and that's only the prevalence of mental illness. There are other statistics that are available, but one of the professionals that has agreed to pass through tonight and share on this occasion where we're paying some homage to mental health awareness has been on the show before, as we were talking about parental alienation, and I want to welcome back to the show someone who, after the first time, no longer is a stranger, is just a family member. So it doesn't really need any special introduction, but we're going to do it anyway. Sonny Etienne, welcome back, bro. Welcome back.
How's it going for you, Kevin?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Good to hear. Really good to hear. Really good to be back on the show. Good to be able to share some of my insights in this particular area.
Listen, Sonny, I got in touch with 3 people today, and all 3 of you agreed to pass through on the show tonight, and I hope to get all 3 of you on this call at some point.
All right. Certain.
There's you, there's Camille Burke, who's a clinical social worker, and there is the Reverend Dr. Clyde Bailey out of Cooper City, Church of God.
Okay. All right.
And I think that's an awesome balance. And don't feel left out. Anybody out there who wants to get in touch, don't feel left out. 773-789-STEW, 773-789-7839. You can get in touch. You can be a part of this by phone, and you can also be a part of this in the chat room, kevinstew.com. Just log on and join the chat. You don't have to sign up or anything. Just type. All right. Sonny.
Yes, sir.
Mental health. And in your practice, you see a lot of kids in your practice?
I do. Actually, my specialization would be children. I've been doing that, of course, since 1997. But as far as clinical practice with children, I've been doing that since 2011.
A little bit of insight. I knew that. I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay, no worries. That's all right.
All right. So when it comes to mental health awareness and children, what has been your findings?
Well, I mean, the children, they're exposed to, the family system. They're part of the family system.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about, let's just break down the word mental and then the word health, 2 separate words, that come together to create this understanding of there being a disorder, or in other words, disease or a dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with, there's an order or a disorder, that is the result of a dysfunction.
Right.
And then some could take it all the way back and say, well, maybe it's because it's a disease, and that's looking at what we call the medical model. But just from the social perspective, you start to look at how within a family system, you look at the structure of the system, you look at the behavioral patterns, traits, characteristics that are passed down from parent to child, aunts and uncles and grandparents. Today I was working with some parents today as far as their value system and how that played into how their child, a 13-year-old, was grieving the death of her grandmother. And this is 5 years later. And the parents reached out to me yesterday, asking to bring the child in because they weren't necessarily quite sure how to approach this issue of death, an issue that affects adults in a very profound way. How much more a child who doesn't have the mental tools to process loss and how to grieve in a healthy way. So when you talk about the mental welfare of children, you got to look at the mental welfare of the parent. Of course, there are certain mental conditions that are more biologically, genetically rooted, hereditary.
Yes.
But then there are others that are more so the result of the socialization of the child, the home in which the child has been nurtured in. And so it be nature,
Yes. Sonny?
So I think, yes, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. As you're going through, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's
But
okay. That's fine.
I just want to acknowledge the joining of Reverend Dr. Clyde Bailey to the call. Dr. Bailey, Dr. Clyde, Sonny Etienne, meet Sonny. Sonny, meet Dr.
Hey.
Clyde.
Nice to meet you, Dr.
Hey,
Clark.
Sonny, how are you doing? How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing quite fine. Sir.
All right.
Great.
Nice to meet you.
Doc,
Yes.
Sonny was just explaining to us his experience with working with kids. I think your device in the background is kind of loud, so we're hearing ourselves. All right, thanks. Sonny was just explaining his experience dealing with children relating to mental health. And Sonny, if you just continue, please. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Welcome to the show, Dr. Bailey. So I was just pretty much touching on just the root causes or an explanation of how mental health affects the entire family system, but as pertaining to the question at hand, how it pertains to children.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, children range from, I guess, 1 and up. But I think you just cannot divorce the two. My last visitation on the show was about parental alienation. And today you have to look at how there's the connection with the child's mental problems or behavioral problems with the parents. You just can't split the two. They're co-joined. And so a lot of times what you'll find is you'll sing, the apple doesn't fall that far from the tree.
Too far from the tree. Doc, as one who in the church, you pretty much can't get away from dealing with both the apple and the tree. And also in your professional capacity. Real quick, Sonny is no stranger to the show. You are no longer a stranger to me, but pretty new to the show. Real quick, if you could just give an overview of who the Reverend Dr. Clyde Bailey is, and then just touch briefly, introduce your experience with mental health and the family.
Well, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I wear two hats. Currently, I'm a pastor at Cooper City Church of God here in South Florida, and as well I serve as the resident counselor. We have a counseling program at the church. My training and background is in marriage and family therapy. In terms of mental health, it's very interesting that we're having this discussion because only last night I had the honor of speaking to a group of men at a local church, and they were talking about mental health and the Christian male. And the thing that was predominant in the conversation is the aspect of depression that so many men in the wider society, but also men within the church circle, that they deal with depression at several different levels. But and I'm sure Sonny will support me on this. The biggest challenge that our men face, and it's even more so within the church circle, is that men, it's difficult to get men to access treatment,
Mm.
and particularly men of color,
Yes.
because of all kinds of social and cultural norms that inform our behavior. And so you find that many of our men, we have learned how to, and I don't know how much we've mastered it, but we have learned how to mask the issue of depression. Is when you think, for example, that we actively find ourselves in church. How many people are meek? Some people 3 times 2 hours. And so within that window of time when we are around our church brothers and sisters, we put on a holy mask and we go to that place where
showtime.
our yes, and we use the right lingo and we behave the right way.
Right.
And when we step off that stage and we go into our cars and we drive back home to our loneliness, our depression, our stress, our frustration, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
where you end up getting that call, and you hear and
yes,
the famous remark. But there was nothing wrong with him. He was here this morning, and
there
he
was
was
none.
so happy.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
that's scary, to say the least.
It's scary, and so I heard my friend Sonny talking about that interplay between the child who probably is his client and the family background, and that's a great breeding ground where males particularly are taught,
Mm.
both verbally and experientially. Men are taught to suck it up, to
Yes.
learn to handle these things. You don't need to go to a counselor or cry and tell people that something is going on with you. You're a man.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking like, well, Pastor Bailey, Pastor Bailey probably getting back, flack on both sides, because you're also talking about men who don't attend church. It's predominantly women. So you're talking about
Right.
I don't want to go get spiritual healing, and I also don't want psychological, emotional, and social healing. I'm just going to deal with it outside the 4 walls of the church and outside the confidential room of a therapist, because
Right.
there's stigmas that come with it. On the one end, I'm crazy in the therapist's office, and in the church, I've been emasculated. So I'll tell you what I will do. I'll hang out on the corner. I'll hang out in front of that TV watching that game. I'll hang out at the bar. I'll find another way to deal with my trauma, my pain. I mean, you talk about mental health issues, pertaining to men. I mean, it's so, now there's this whole movement of what, Me Too? I mean, imagine how many men would stand up and say, yeah, I too was sexually abused.
Yes.
Good luck with that one.
But we probably won't hear that.
Exactly. We won't.
Because when it comes to men, though, it's kind of difficult. If a woman comes on to a man, even if it isn't welcomed, it's not a welcome advance, but it is still along the lines of, hey, I'm a guy and clearly I'm attractive, so women are supposed to come on to me. Versus, well, yeah, there's a possibility of the me too. I think we lost Sonny for a moment. Oh, here, let's get him back.
Okay.
Yeah, Sonny, you're back with us.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Yeah, so there there is that fear, um, and that is even after going through something. So there is the pride that comes with it, in my opinion, that says I'm a guy, I'm supposed to be attractive, I'm supposed to have an advance here and there, so this is supposed to be okay, and we're not taught otherwise. Even as young men, we're not taught otherwise. We're taught by society, especially those of us who are from the Caribbean. Um, we're taught that there's a certain amount of rite of passage as a young boy to get an older woman at some point, to get an older girl, as a young teen to get one of the big girls. And if a young woman approaches you, then you're considered, in Jamaican parlance, top of top. You're the real big man, not recognizing that, hey, this is a form of abuse.
Mhm.
So,
but,
yes, Doc.
go ahead, Sonny. Go ahead, Sonny.
Hmm?
You're gonna say something, Doc. It was me.
Yeah.
No, I was waiting for doctor. Huh?
All right. Let me jump in here.
Yes.
So so the scenario that you paint is 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 pretty common.
Hmm.
But let's step away from what is common, and let's step away and let's go into the uncommon, or the one that is hardly reported. Um, where a boy was sexually abused by an older male relative, or even an older man within the community. And
Yes.
this happened to him at a young and tender age in his formative years. And that man is supposed to be somebody he was brought up to respect and trust. So the abuse takes on a nature of secrecy, bribery,
Mm-hmm.
threat,
Hmm.
and so forth. So a lot of us are shocked when later on we hear 40-year-old men coming out and complaining that they were abused, um, sexually abused in their formative years, and you wonder, is this true? But the truth is that the very occurrence, or the season of the occurrences, because very often it happens more over a period of time, they were made in secret, to keep it a secret. There's a shame on top of it, and then in the wider family circle now, who is going to believe you as a 6-year-old, 6-year-old, that your
Mm.
uncle did that to you? You're making that up. You're telling a lie. You're trying to
Yes.
bring shame and praise to the family. So, so, so even in that regard, you keep the family secret. You keep your personal secret. You struggle in pain, and you find that young man, not all of them, but you find that they are the ones who will grow up with all kinds of mental health issues, low self-esteem, confusion about their sexuality, um, unable to build relationships with people of the opposite sex, um, practicing deviant sexual behavior, all those kinds of things. And when they, by the time they get into Sonny's office
Hmm.
and he probes, he can trace it right back to those instances of abuse.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the challenge becomes, Doctor Bailey, is the walls that are put up. First of all, how did I even get that client into that office? And you know usually how it happens in my case, and it's sad. It's usually because this person is either court ordered, in other words, he has to attend therapy, and it's usually for, guess what, anger management,
Mm.
or or it's a girlfriend or a wife or a sister. Or last week I had an older sister who was concerned about her brother, calling and basically begging, or it's typically a wife. My husband, he's just going through some stuff. I don't know what's going on with him. He's changing. So in other words, it's usually a female family member or just close friend or the court. In other words, it's an outside source that's now pushing this person into treatment. That person is going to willingly come on their own. Yeah. And then when we narrow it down to men of color, or in this case, men of African descent, it becomes even more difficult to get them into office. I mean, today, and this is literally today, I was with a man of Indian descent in my office.
One sec. Yeah, we had just lost Dr. Bailey for a moment.
Yeah,
We just got him back. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah.
So a man of Indian descent was in your office today?
Yeah, a man of Indian descent. He's from the Middle East area, India to be exact, and he willingly came into therapy.
Right.
Completely transparent in therapy, emotional, crying, expressing what was going on with him. And I'm sitting there thinking, again, I get it, men of color. And I'm thinking, man, what if we have more dudes from our communities as willing to participate? So I think, going back to a Dr. Bailey referred to as, a culture of secrecy,
yes,
a culture of hyper masculinity, a culture and coming from homes in which emotionalism is a sense of weakness or a sense of, just when you think about the negative connotations, or terms used to refer to men. Usually it's you're a B, you're an H, you're acting like a P. And notice these are all words associated with women.
Yes.
So in other words, you're going to therapy or you're going to a pastor, you're acting like a
sissy.
So now we're touching on identity issues now.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doc.
And you're so right, Sonny. You're so right. And earlier on, Sonny mentioned the issue of them not being willing to come in. Again, because it's conflict. I need help, but I have been socialized not to access the kind of help that seems to be readily available. So a man who walks into the office of a therapist is perceived to be weak, or and he doesn't want to seem to be weak, and so the opposite of that is to be strong and stay away. God forbid that he should, even if he goes in, that if he should ever come back and tell any of his friends, associates that he's seeing a counselor, therapist, because he's dealing with. Oh my goodness! The stigma just jumps out a monster at him. And so he lives his life fearing this kind of stereotype or the application of the stigma to his life. So he just chooses to suffer in silence. And the other thing is that there is another group of men who will tell you that they would probably be willing to go and seek help, but the help that is available or that they know of is more oriented towards women. Like some men just resent the idea of sitting on somebody's couch and pouring out their heart. That's too girlish.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. So there are some professionals, for example, who have been experimenting with something that they call work therapy or hobby therapy, where they create groups for men to actually do things that are manly, something with with wood or metal or technology or something like that, or even some kind of sporting activity.
Okay.
Things that men are comfortable on, and in the process, while they are engaging in those activities, then you use the opportunity
Start
to
a
address
conversation.
those. Yes, yes.
So, but
And let me just add this. I think that's where TD Jakes was successful back in the late 90s, going into the early 2000s with his movement, Manpower. And not just Manpower, also he had a book called Emotions, you know, and that was, to be quite frank, I think that piggybacked off of the Million Man March. Why am I saying that? Because, of course, this is, you know, unique to the American experience. But in terms of just what drew men to that, as opposed to a therapist's couch, or as opposed to a pastor's office, or to church pew, is that these movements spoke directly to him. It did not take away his masculinity. In fact, it was empowering him. You know, and the reason why power is such a word that I want to use is because when you think about, you know, the socialization of men, it is that of power. You need to be strong. You need to, you know, be fortified. You need to have it together. And this is why I believe the Nation of Islam had such an appeal to African American men here in America in the early '60s. You know, going on, and why many men, even in the '60s, were more inclined towards the nation than they were the civil rights movement, led by, of course, King and the other Southern Conference leaders.
right.
They were like, man, that movement, it makes us look like chicks. That movie 65 was. Well, this movement right here, it just reaffirms our masculinity. So I'm saying all that to say, you know, back to the creative approaches that they're trying to find to reach men. We could look at history, American history here, to see what did appeal to men of color, you know, and not just here, but I think abroad, you know.
You see, you guys, I don't know how you managed to answer the question that I was going to ask. I was going to ask you, Dr. Clyde, you know, what would be the way to reach these men? Because in church, you would think that it would be easier for men to come forward and speak to someone in the church, whether it be a brother or one of the pastors, the men's fellowship leader, whomever. You would think that should have been easier for one of those in church, and that's just specifically talking about men, but generally speaking, people in church, you would think that it would be an environment where he would be able to come forward and say, listen, this is what I'm going through, I need help. But it's not quite the case, and so you too have to be creative in getting people to come forward. Welcome guest number 7 to the show. Those of you listening, just as a reminder, if you want to call in, 773-789-STEW is a number you can use, 773-789-7839. 19 minutes to the top of the hour. This segment is brought to you courtesy of GMAC Music Solutions, bringing music to life. The previous segment, the first half hour, was courtesy of Pulse E Media Group, and Being in a Moment is priceless. You can always give them a call. You get in touch with Pulse, 754-999-6020. And GMAC 754-307-4622. All right, cool. So, yeah, we're not taking any breaks. We're just going through because we have a lot to talk about. And this is just flowing, so we're just working with it tonight. So, with what you were saying, Sonny, TD Jakes had that kind of a thing to pull men together and use those tools as a means to open up the lines of communication, so to speak.
Yeah, I do think that.
Dr. Clyde, what what, if any, are these the same difficulties that you have seen with your ministry, your time in the church, bringing what you bring to the table?
Um, but first of all, as 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 as, as Sonny will I'm sure Sonny will agree with me. As as practitioners, we we find a way to celebrate men who will, on their own, access the services, um, because they are they are challenging the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
They are going against the norm. So when a man comes into the office and is willing to, and he's coming on his own, not you're not seeing him being dragged by his wife or girlfriend or mother, then
Yes.
you have to celebrate that brother. You know.
Right.
But the other thing is this, that as practitioners, and 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 if you want to include church, as I introduced earlier, an environment has to be created and an assurance has to be provided to the man or the group that this is a safe environment,
Mm-hmm.
a place where you can be yourself and you are assured that what is said in this space stays in this space. Um, and that's not, that goes beyond just saying it in words, that practitioners and churches who attempt to provide this kind of an intervention or service has to be so carefully crafted that the man that or the men that you're talking, that they'll believe the gesture that you're extending to them.
Yes.
Um, so, so that for example, a simple thing like when Sonny talks about manpower, that was a macro scale effort, but within that movement, I mean, there were breakout sessions, workshops, and those were smaller contexts that were created for men to just be themselves and talk their issues out. One of the things that men respond to,
Mm-hmm.
they respond to real life stories. So so
Yes.
so if you're trying to do any kind of group activity, and there's a brother who can come forward in that group and say, listen, this has been my experience, or this is what I'm struggling with. I've been struggling with depression for the past 2 years, and this is what it has done to me, and this is what it looks like, and here is how I have been dealing with it, and so forth. That 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 man represents reality,
Yes.
and it invites me to now take a step forward in speaking my own story and begin the process of getting some help. But all of that cannot be casual. It has to be intentional, because the slightest sign of weakness or crack in the structure that you create, whether it is somebody who is going to snitch or somebody who is going to go back and report to their women folk or so, anything like that, and it can be destroyed and you create worse damage than before.
Mm. And I know there are probably some people that are saying, wait a minute, they're talking about mental health awareness. Why is it that there is a focus on men so much? Why is there such a strong focus on men? Um, and I'm going to dare to hazard a guess. Does it have anything to do with the fact that if you get the head of household, the man to go ahead and do this, then the rest of the family will follow. Gent-
Sonny, you want to answer that?
Sonny, where did Sonny go?
What? No.
Oh, there he is.
No, I'm right here. I'm right here. No, go ahead, Dr. Bailey. Let me hear your thoughts on this.
Because no, I'm thinking that we might end up with two sides of the same coin, and one more of a spiritual side and one with a social side.
Well, I can tell you, and this is probably not exclusive, but one possible women. Here's something that it's between the occurrences of mental health problems, right? It probably might vary by no more than 3 or 4%. The differences. However, what happens is that women are more likely to access intervention, treatment, help than men. So women, a woman who finds herself struggling with issues of anxiety or depression or anyone of those, they will go to see the counselor. They will go to the clinic. They will go and see a psychiatrist. They are less afraid to access the help that is out there.
Is it because they're more emotional?
I've been careful to say that because that might be misconstrued as stereotypical. But
yeah,
there is some.
Okay, it's okay. I will say it.
Women are more willing to embrace their emotions and to express their feelings, and in the process, they're willing to seek help.
Okay. Sonny, is there finding any different? Is there another perspective to
No.
this?
I pretty much concur with Dr. Bailey. I think it's a case of women are socialized to be more in touch with their emotions as opposed to men who are taught differently. So a girl is taught to play with dolls. What are you doing with a doll? You're developing those nurturing skills. You know, you think about whereas the boy is given a what? He's given a gun. He's given cars.
Yeah.
You know, so he's mechanical. Work with your hands. Tough it out. Be a tough guy. But even if you think about this other factor, which is, earlier I said, so once I get the guy into my office, so that's good and dandy, but is he going to talk? The walls are up. As opposed to women, right? Women are more inclined to talk because that's what this is. I'm in the business of talk therapy. I'm in the ministry of, healing through words. That's what we are. In fact, state of Florida terms, psychotherapists as healing agents. That's what we do, right? But it's through talking things out. You look at all of your major talk shows. They're spearheaded by, back in the maybe 90s, you had your Donahues and your Geraldos. But then who became the queen of it? Oprah Winfrey. And who's her audience base? Women.
Yes.
Wendy Williams is making millions upon millions of dollars because she gossips. She's just chatting away and just talking. And so I think that speaks something, pun intended, speaks something to just the idea that women want to speak, women want to talk, women want to let things out, good or for bad. So I think, again, culture endorses that. It pushes that. Go ahead, girls, talk it out. So whereas with guys, this is a thought for you guys to think about, right? Here we are on a radio show.
Yes.
What shows do men typically listen to as far as talk radio?
Sports
Sport and politics.
Yeah.
That's where it stops. That's where it stops. You know? And so again, whereas a woman, she's playing her music, she's listening to parenting, teachings, she's listening to her little her Christian radio, or her, you know, if she's a Hindu, she's listening to something that enhances her spirituality. And of course, this is some generalizations that I'm making.
Yes.
But I think she's more encouraged by what society is telling her. You know, our daughters are raised, talk, open up. They're being socialized. When they're in elementary school, they're part of groups. And in that group, they're cultivating the skill of social skills, of talking.
Yes.
But a boy, he expresses it a little differently, you know? Because what happens to that little boy who likes to shatter? You're acting like
a girl.
A girl.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I was actually with a father last night, and well, I wasn't with him, but we were talking, and he was saying, like, man, my second son, I can't share anything with him because whenever he goes back to his mom's house, he just spills all the beans. He's a snitch. He's just, and here it is. He's running his mouth.
Yes.
And then he tells me, Sonny, I think we need to work on him. In other words, we need to man him up. Because he's acting like a beep.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think you catch my drift here.
Yes, yes.
Talk is encouraged for women, whereas for men it's discouraged.
But I heard you mention something at the very beginning. You said girls they're socialized to play with dolls, which teaches a sense of nurturing. And I guess in that it also fosters communication, verbal communication, because you're playing with human-like toys. So you're I guess fostering that communication, the art of gab. In you gentlemen, in your practice, have you found that men who as boys hung out with girls and played some of the games that the girls played, do you find that those are more likely to go and talk about their issues?
I guess for me, I can't say that I've seen that. I think because I've seen guys who have grown up with a lot of sisters, or you know, interact with a lot of women, who are still reluctant to open up. You know, and I can say that because, you know, like I told you before, there's what I do within my practice, but then I also work for a community-based agency, so I'm actually in homes where the fathers cannot run away from me, because I'm in their home.
Right.
I have the luxury now of getting them to totally, because that's the one thing I will say. Let me say this, though, to all my brothers out there listening. Once you get him talking, if you're good at what you do, if you really have that empathy, that genuine concern, that regard for that man, not only will he talk, he looks forward to his conversations with you. I had this Jamaican guy I was working with. He and his son and the mother. They were divorced, but but they had, you know, shared time. And so when he first met me, you know, in his Jamaican accent, he was like, "I don't know about you. You're spending too much time with my son. I don't know what you're about." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Yeah, because the last therapist used to spend too much time with my son. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that." And then I said, "You know what? I want to make you comfortable. I want us to meet." We met at his house. And he said, "Oh, you're of Haitian descent. Oh, okay. Then you family." So that helped me out. That was one. But then talking, and he started talking and talking and talking. It wasn't even about his son anymore. It was about how his parents abandoned him as a little boy in Jamaica. It was about how he struggled throughout his life with a sense of rejection.
Yes.
So I'm saying that to say, once you are able to engage, that's why Dr. Bailey will, I'm sure, agree with, one of the main skills that we have to own and possess and execute effectively as therapists, as counselors, is the gift of empathy and the ability to engage that, not just guy, but that female. Because we're talking about mental health and it affects everyone.
Yes.
But, I guess the conversation went towards males, who are somewhat more resistant to treatment. If we can make that connection, develop that rapport, that gift of gab that you mentioned earlier is there. It's just now he feels comfortable. And as Dr. Bailey said, there's a level of trust that I know my information is protected by this other human being who just connects with me.
Yeah.
He talks. And does he ever talk? He's totally open to you.
Doc?
Yeah. I want to go back to the original question, and I like the way how Sonny approached it. But I want to recommend that it's not just the guy who would have hung out with girls who is able to be in touch with his emotions, but it's the guy who has had male figures in his life who mirror that kind of sense, right? So if he is able to witness his father or any other adult male close to him grieve at the loss of a loved one, if he's able to spend time with his parents and see them express and demonstrate emotion, if he has men around him who are willing to have conversations on topics that are not so commonly talked about among men, if he has those experiences in the presence of a man who he looks up to, who he respects, and so forth, he would begin to mirror and adapt those degrees of sensitivity. So we don't just want to be able to leave this discussion and said, men who hang out with girls or boys who hang out with girls and so forth are sensitive. They can develop that sensitivity just by being around men who are also real and honest.
Does it take more effort? I wonder. I ask that because I'll be honest. I grew up with a lot of females around me. I was most of the time the only male in my house. I had my uncle, and that was it. Other people in my house were my mother, my grandmother, and my sister. So I have a lot of female cousins. So I grew up around a lot of females. So I have no problems talking. I guess I'm one of the few people that I know that would go into a therapist's office and sit down and have a chat. And I do so regularly, especially since I started doing this show. This is the first time I'm mentioning it publicly, but just like your oral health and your general health is important, physical health, so is your mental health. So if you're working at least a half decent job and you get health benefits, one of the things I recommend to any man to do is go ahead and find a therapist. Nothing may be wrong with you, and that's fine. But if you're not in the habit of talking to someone, or find a pastor, find someone like the Reverend Dr. Clyde Bailey. Sit and if you go to church, sit and talk with your pastor. Okay, there may be some trust issues because of whatever. Cool, I get that. But pastors, like therapists, are bound by certain responsibilities and certain laws, so certain code of ethics. So you have nothing to fear. So, but that's just me.
Let me touch on one of those.
Yeah.
Let me just touch on one of those fears. One of the fears is the financial piece, and I'm happy you do allude to it because sometimes you have the willing participant. He just does not have the means. She just does not have the financial means to go into therapy. Therapy, look, it's some even consider it a luxury, for you to be able to afford it and so forth, right? And then in some cases, they just don't have the health coverage that covers it.
Right.
Also.
Right.
And then, of course, it's very important, it's finding the right fit. Does this therapist take my insurance? Is this therapist, am I going to connect with this therapist? So there's a lot that goes into therapy being effective. But as it pertains to the financial part of it, though, I think that is one of the barriers for some would-be clients, is that they feel like, why would I go pay some person to give me their opinion when I could just do that for myself and just go on YouTube and just YouTube it?
Let me Google that.
Exactly, yeah, just Google it, All right. Well, for a couple of reasons, to all the listeners. First of all, I like to talk about what I call the 3 E's. It's an encounter, okay? It's an encounter. It's an experience that you cannot replicate or duplicate with some YouTube video. Okay, so we have an encounter and you have an experience, and it is educational. It's an education, It's an engagement that is occurring, all right? It's an enrichment that is occurring. And I can go on and on with this, iteration of all these E's. But I think it's important because now you understand what you're investing in, that your money, if you're paying out of pocket or if it's being covered by insurance, it's not just like, money not well spent. It's money well spent, particularly if it's the right fit. But I do think that for some people, and I'll definitely love to hear Dr. Bailey's take on this, that the financial strain maybe of treatment keeps them out of service.
Yes. Yeah, well, I can, speaking for myself, I get that. I understand there may be financial constraints also, but so is the financial constraint when you have to go to the dentist. So is the final constraint when you have to go see your general practitioner. There's a cost to everything. But what is the price you're going to pay for not doing it? So you haven't gone to your doctor in 15 years and you're developing this health condition that now requires you to have surgery. You have the money for that? You haven't been to the dentist in 12 years and now you need to remove 12 teeth. Do you have the money for that? And it's the same thing. Going to an optician, it's the same thing. So, is it a necessary evil, so to speak? I think, yeah. Does the benefit outweigh the cost? I think definitely, yeah. But I'm just one guy, and my recommendation is try to find somebody to talk to. If you don't go to a church, you can find a church and become familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't know anybody at the church, all the better. Nobody can talk your story. And if they
Right.
do,
Right.
what do you care? You don't know them anyway.
Right.
But we I believe strongly that we need to change this mindset that we have in our society that really and truly alienates mental health issues. It's that thing that really lets people who consider themselves to be normal to turn up their noses at everybody else. Listen, you only consider yourself normal, in my opinion, because you agree with 51% of the group of your community. But that 49% that thinks differently is not that far off, in my opinion. And with that, I tend to associate with the 49 percentile. Yay,
Well, well,
49ers.
well, 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 see, let me piggyback. Let me piggyback on a point that I hear you making very loud and clear, um, about men taking the bold step to access services. I mean, you do so. They are reluctant as well to go to the doctor, but they are more likely to go to the doctor than to go to seek about their mental health. Um, but but what is even more critical
Mm-hmm.
is coming to an awareness that I have a problem, and 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 I guess probably the church, um, government organizations, um, social clubs, whatever it is, have to have to jump in and play a part in education. Um, because there are, I've been talking about depression because that is the number one issue that that we find in our men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are people who are depressed and don't know that they are depressed.
Yes.
Um, and so because I don't know that I'm depressed, um, I have no idea that I need to go to a doctor or to go to a counselor because I don't know that I'm depressed. I think that's probably what is happening to me. Is just normal. The environment in which I live is very stressful. Where I work is very stressful. The financial problems I'm having, it's not unique to me.
Right, right.
So whatever what I'm going through, everybody is going through it. It's just that some people learn to smile bigger than others. Um, so he does. So poor guy doesn't know that he is depressed. So public education will have to be a way to get the message out to them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, to be able to help them to to know that there are some common symptoms or indicators that you are wrestling with a mental health issue and you need to go see a doctor. Too often is when we reach the case, and I think I heard you talk about it very early in the show when you were reeling out some statistics.
Yeah.
Very often it's too late when the man has successfully committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear people backpedaling. Oh, I really noticed that he started to be by himself, and I really noticed that he didn't want to come to family reunions and all that. I said, yeah, really?
Hindsight is
It's too
2020.
yes, it's too late at that stage, right?
Yes.
Um, and so just as much as in the retail industry we see them use commercials and what have you, just as much as government organizations use public education, universities they advertise in the media. Groups will have to find ways to get that message out into the community that here are some mental health killers in our society, right? When we live in a society where 78 out of every 100 suicides are men. That's not something to be proud about, right? So it means that only leaves us with 22% of men who are 22% of the other suicide cases are women. What is happening? Our men are killing themselves off at such a rate that is alarming.
Too many women to deal with.
Yes. So
that's why they're doing it.
We have, yes, you know, Britain is ahead of us. I mean, there are groups in Britain who are taking some very radical approach to addressing mental health, especially among men, especially because countries in Europe, they have high incidence of suicide, and suicide among men, young men, middle-aged men, and so they have decided to take a more proactive approach in getting the message that men, when you see certain things start showing up in your life, go to see a doctor, go get help, right?
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
You know, one question posted in the chat. Thank you, Marlon. How much of a factor is confidence that what is discussed will remain confidential? I guess that's when it comes to talking in the church, because when you go into a doctor's office, there's that privacy declaration, the Hippocratic Oath, but it applies to churches also.
Yes. And some church leaders are ahead of the game. So there are some church leaders who will say to their members, like, listen, we know that we can't convince you that your business is confidential with us. So we will help you to access independent services outside of the walls of this church, outside of one of our church members who might be a professional in that regard, and so forth. So I know, for example, of churches who will say, somebody goes to the pastor and the pastor recognizes that this person is dealing with a mental health issue, and the church will say, listen, we will pay the first 4 sessions for you to go and see a counselor.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. That's the church investing in its
their members, yes.
In a way to preserve life and to bring about healing and whole, right?
Yes. But and there are some companies that model after that also. They follow that model. They say, all right, you don't think that you're at your optimum and you want to see someone, well, we have a program for that. That is why you pay health insurance.
Yes. Yes.
But if you don't ask about it in the place that you work, a lot of the times you won't know about it, because again, in the workplace they don't talk about mental health.
Well, they don't talk about it until something goes wrong. You know, that's why they call it going postal. You know.
Yeah.
When
the person walks into the workplace with a baseball bat, being conservative now, they walk in with a baseball bat and they pulverize all the computers and anybody that tries to get in their way.
Yes.
That's the best case scenario.
Well, it's also the same thing when you think about school shootings. Who are doing the shooting? These are men. These are boys. These are boys who are hurting, who are damaged, very wounded individuals, have either been bullied, just have parental issues in the home, and yada, yada, yada.
Yes.
But like the disgruntled, coworker who comes in, this is the student who comes into the classroom. You know, he has unresolved issues, And so you're right, whether it's an EAP, that's the employee assistant programs, for, to cover for certain services, not only allows for, X amount of sessions, nevertheless, it's a start.
It's a start, though.
Because a lot of times, again, like I told you earlier, once a client, regardless of gender, gets a taste of therapy, if, again, I gotta say this caveat, if the therapy is good, they come back. They come back and they see that it's worth their time and it's worth their purchase, if you will. And so I do think that is important, though, the type of service that they're getting. Sometimes you might find a community-based program that may, it's what you call indigent. It'll provide services for the less unfortunate, or those who just don't have coverage.
Yes.
But then the quality that you're getting, in other words, you get what you pay for or what you didn't pay for. So the quality may not be the best, and that can leave a bad taste in the mouth of clients who otherwise, will probably do really well if they had good quality service. It's just it's not the best sometimes.
Going back to the church thing, hashtag Happy had posted in the chat room, I think many Christians don't look into therapy because depression is seen as a sin. Too blessed to be stressed is a common misconception in the church. They feel that if they're stressed or sad, it's because they don't trust God or they don't have enough faith. Dr. Bailey.
I would say amen to that.
But
and
go ahead.
And so the brother who faces that kind of situation, somebody will probably have to, who is probably close to him and honest, be able to plant a bug in his ear that, listen, let me help you to find someone independent outside of the church. Someone who can provide a safe space for you to access the help that you need. Somebody who will not judge you, who is professional, somebody who will practice the extreme of confidentiality, somebody who will be patient and understanding and gentle and compassionate with you and objective. So it comes down to community. We have to encourage our men, especially, to step outside of the realm of isolation and secrecy and the one-man bandit lifestyle, and go out and interact with the world, build relationships, because it is out of that community that you engage in that someone might be able to hold your hand and walk you to and walk you through the intervention that you need.
But
I want to go back. I want to applaud for talking about the school shooting.
Yeah.
And if you realize that the school shooting, the instances of school shooting, in a negative way, are very successful. So these are boys and young men who the level of mental health issues that they're dealing with is so great, but yet they are cognizant enough to plot ways and means of expressing themselves through violence.
yes.
And ensure that they are effective. And we look back and we see that not only do they want to express violence against people, but they have already figured out a way they can turn the violence on themselves. And so that that is a human being who has gone to who has experienced such dire expression or extent of a mental health issue, paranoia, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, whatever it is. And so in the process of of committing suicide, let me take some people down with me.
Going out in a blaze of glory.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, Again, you see the incidence of substance abuse, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes. You find that those are things that a lot of men will be engaged in practice, um, and we think that these things are cool, or we just think that these are people who are just bad people, but very often these are efforts to cope with what they're dealing with.
With as it relates to the point that was raised earlier with the misconception of too blessed to be stressed, um, is there the possibility then that how it is that the congregation is receiving the word is needs to be reconstructed? Well, how the word is being delivered to them, in that if they recognize that yes, there is this whole too blessed to be stressed mentality, but understand that stress does come because of, and when it does come, to recognize what that stress looks like, and if you can't deal with it yourself, to come, let us talk, because we're a family. Do you think that that is an approach that needs to be adopted if it is not already being adopted, Dr. Clyde?
Um, pro- Probably. So let's go back. Let's go back to the statement that you've been bouncing around. Too blessed to be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trophy statement.
Yes.
It's a statement. It's a statement of pride, but also it's a statement of deflection. So if I can announce very early in my interactions with you that I'm too blessed to be stressed, then I've cut you off at the knee. You won't have any reason to ask me, to suspect, to explore if I'm dealing with any. But I've already answered your question from the outset.
Yes.
And so I use that to say to you, don't get too much into my business.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of defeating the whole purpose of the hospital that is church.
Yes. Yes.
Because again, church is not for those that are saved.
You're right. But many people don't find that haven of rest, that shelter, that balm in Gilead in churches, and sometimes it's not the fault of the church. Maybe it's part of their way of avoidance, or denial, but there are churches who are making an effort, and there are churches who need to make more effort.
Sonny, statistic for you: 70% of youth in juvenile justice system have at least one mental health condition, and at least 20% live with a serious mental illness. Well, seeing that most of your children come through the system, I guess you'd say round about 100% of those that you have seen would fall into this category.
I would say we got to be very cautious with that. I'm also a former juvenile probation officer, And so here in Broward County. And so while that field of study precedes my work in therapy, I was making referrals to therapists, at the time. In fact, I was trained as a probation officer to do what is called a MAZE, which is basically a mental health assessment of the children that were on probation.
Right.
The reason why I think that is because we do want to not confuse behavioral problems with the psychiatric problem. So yeah, and the reason why I say that is because when you're talking about behavioral problems, then you're talking about choice. Whereas with psychiatric problems, earlier when we started the show, we talked about the biological, genetic. It's what we call the biopsychosocial. We're looking at the person holistically. We're looking at all angles to make sense of the condition. So often a kid who comes in with a behavioral problem will get a behavioral diagnosis. There are two in particular: oppositional defiance disorder or what is called conduct disorder. But often they have a history of ADHD. That's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? All of those of which, maybe ADHD not so much, but oppositional defiance disorder, which is basically just saying a kid refuses to comply, or conduct disorder, which is he or she refuses to comply to the extent that now they're breaking the law, right?
Right.
But how much of that is just the parenting is not intact? So there's no discipline. And this child just has poor social skills, not a mental health problem. But we live in a society in which, and I'm going to just call it what it is, the American society, in which it's kind of like a Macy's sale. You buy one and you get two free. So a kid may just have a problem with following the rules, but because he was talking during class, all of a sudden he has a focus problem. All of a sudden he has a concentration issue. So now he's labeled or he's diagnosed with ADHD. Why is that important? Because I'm leading to the next question. I mean the next issue, and that is pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
Medication. Okay, and that's maybe for a whole other show. But let's just say they call it big pharma. It's big business. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes.
So I'm going down a path, that it gets very political.
Something else I talk about pretty often. I talk about that pretty often on my Tuesday show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just thought that it was important to say that because when you look at those statistics, you always hear your listeners, whenever looking at statistics, who funded that study?
Yes.
You have to look into that. Because what is their agenda and how do those numbers support whatever agenda they have? Okay?
Right.
So, so saying all that to say, yes, there are going to be those kids who definitely come through the juvenile justice system who also present with psychiatric or underlying mood disorders. And let me give you a quick overview of that. So, we talked about what we call adolescent behavioral diagnosis, but then you have the more pervasive psychiatric conditions. Now we're talking about thought disorders, which covers schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. Then you have another family called mood disorders, and that's where you have the gamut of depression all the way through mania, hypomania, and bipolar. And you've got the anxiety family, which covers obsessive compulsive disorders, generalized anxiety, a plethora of phobias, and we can go on and on. But the reason why all that is important is, because that also speaks to why some people don't seek out treatment. Is I don't want a diagnosis. Right. Because what does that diagnosis mean to me? Will it affect my child? Will it affect me on the job? Will that prevent me from keeping a job or maybe being offered a job because I have a medical history? Well, first of all, there are laws to protect your medical information called HIPAA. But moreover, there's just confidentiality, within the, within the profession and within healthcare itself. Information is just not divulged like that.
Yes.
However, that is an area of concern for a lot of people is what does this diagnosis mean for me? Does it define me? Is my child going to probably develop it? So, it's for some people it is. It's a death sentence, They are unable to see beyond the diagnosis. And in some cases, the diagnoses are given for the purpose of let's just tell them the way it is, doc. Billing for insurances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has to do with the insurance companies. And now we're talking about again the marriage between insurance and the pharmaceutical
companies. Yes.
But I think and while I've not met Dr. Bailey, I still get a good sense that he's doing this from a place of faith. And he's doing this from a place of genuine concern for the public, for the people that we serve. And the word serve is very important because I think whether it's ministry or whether it's this career, we are still serving people. We are in what we call the helping profession. The last time I was on the show, I told you I'm a helper.
Yes.
Yes, the word psychotherapist is cute and we're counselors. And at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're just helpers. We use the gift of talk and the gift of insight to help people, resolve their issues. I know I took this detour from the question, but I was arriving right back to it. So these kids are coming in through the through the DJJ, which is Department of Juvenile Justice,
right?
And they are being diagnosed with mental health problems. But sometimes it's unfair. It's not like they have any real psychiatric issues. And I work with too many kids who say, they're giving me all these meds and all it's doing is doing X, Y, and Z. And that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered the question, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You answered it from the get-go, but I like the explanation that came after. 25 minutes to the top of the hour. This is the Wake Up and Live segment of the night shift, courtesy of Sir Rockwell and the Wake Up and Live show. Gentlemen, as we wrap up and I go into my musical therapy, I want you all to closing statements as it relates to personal statements, as it relates to what you want the listeners to know about mental health awareness. And I want you to go first, Sonny, so that we can close out with the Reverend Doctor.
Okay. I want you guys to all know that, health concerns, it's part of the human condition. And whether it's physical ailments or whether it's one of a psychological nature, there's nothing wrong with getting checked out. No different from someone encouraging you to, have your colon checked, or go have your prostate checked. Go make sure that everything is okay upstairs. Because if that's not functioning correctly, there goes everything else. That's why it's called the headquarters. That's where that's the control center.
Yes.
This is master control. This is how you function. This is how you're able to operate. If it is something that's not just psychological, then a good therapist will refer you to a neurologist, because maybe it's more of a brain issue than it is just the mind. And if that be the case, then let's get you into let's get you to the right hands and getting the right care. That's the same thing that would happen if you went to see an oncologist and he feels like, no, you actually need to go see a urologist. They're going to refer you because we're just trying to pinpoint what the issue is and direct you to the specialist that best meets your need. So don't shy away from addressing what could be detrimental, you know, and trust that and take the risk the possibility of because that's all it is. It's just a risk.
Yeah.
That hey, it may not work out, and that might be the case.
And that's fine.
I think there's much more to gain. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's much more to gain than there is to lose. And sitting down with a therapist, and it's not always what you see on television. You know, you laying on a couch. Just for the record, that is called psychoanalysis. That is something that is not even widely practiced that much anymore. It's you in a couch, seated facing a therapist, having a conversation. That's why most therapists' office looks like a living room.
Yes.
It's a couch, a chair, and maybe a desk, and we're just having a conversation. So there's nothing to be afraid of, you know. I definitely want to talk about introspective counseling service. That's my practice, you know. 3 locations, one in Plantation, one in Coral Springs, and another office in Tamarack. I could be reached at 754-281-0749. I'm a qualified licensed clinician by the state of Florida, and I reach children, I reach families, couples, just individuals just dealing with life issues. Life happens to us all. Nothing wrong with getting help.
Right. Dr. Clyde.
Sonny, I want to reach across the airways and shake your hand, because I think that I'm really impressed with the way you brought this conversation to a conclusion. The message that your audience needs to hear tonight is there are people who are professionals and who are compassionate and are willing to help, but they cannot help unless you take the first step and give them a call, go to their office, or find someone who can help you to get to the help that you need. The man who gets a fighting chance to live tomorrow is the man who recognizes today that he needs help and he goes after it.
Yes.
And it's so very important. And regardless of your color, your status, your ethnicity, background, whatever it is, regardless of all of those things, at the core of who you are, you're a human being, and human beings are affected by issues. And if you find that there are changes, you might not. I mean, Sonny reeled off a bunch of diagnoses. You might not even have the wisdom to know which one. But if you, just as much as we use a mirror to help us to see if there's anything wrong with our physical, we have to find a mirror. We have to be in check with ourselves. If you notice that you are behaving differently, or your body is behaving differently, it's a message that either your body or your mind is sending to you that something is out of order.
Right.
And you need to go check it. Right? And in this day of technology, a good place to start is to Google it. Google it.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that you have been very irritable. Google that. If you notice that you have been having sleepless nights, Google that, whatever it is. But don't sit down and pretend as if it is normal, because it is not normal.
Right.
And when you hear our message, you need to understand that we are doing this show tonight not because we don't have anything else to do, but we are doing it from a place of compassion, because we want to save We want to save lives. We want to be able to help the next person who is out there listening and who is struggling. So, my word to you is get the help. Get the help. Reach for the help. It's better to go and the professional will say to you, things are not that bad,
Yes.
rather than you wait until it is too late. Um, Thank you so much for having us. It has been a wonderful experience just talking. I feel as though the three of us were in one living room together.
We practically were. And I wanna thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out to share with us. It is much needed. And from the chat room, thank you, gentlemen, for this very informative conversation. You're very welcome. Hashtag happy. It has been a privilege
Thank
and
you.
a pleasure. Uh, Reverend Dr. Clyde Bailey, Sonny Etienne, thank you, thank you, thank you. Doc, I'm gonna ask one more thing of you.
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna ask that you say a word of prayer over all those who are going through mental health issues, suffering, and the families of those suffering, and those who are
Yes.
not yet aware but are going through things and looking for that clarity, looking for that answer, looking for a place that they can express what it is they're going through. I just want you to just utter a word over those dealing and those who have to deal with.
Okay. Thanks. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we want to thank you for this opportunity that we were able to have sat down together and talk about some issues that are relevant and critical to in our own society. We thank you, God, that you organized it, that there are people out there who are listening or who have listened to this program. People, Lord, who may be dealing with mental health issues and needed to hear some of the things that were discussed tonight. Spirit of God, we ask you that you help them to be wise and courageous and bold enough to begin to access the help that they need. Lord, the word tells us that you desire that we prosper and be in good health. And we want to know that those who are struggling with mental health issues, that they will be able to overcome them. Lord, we pray for families of people who have been affected by the evils of mental health. People, Lord, who have lost loved ones to suicide. People who have loved ones who are affected by substance abuse and who are dealing with these horrible mental health diseases. I pray that you will bless those families and cause that they will be able to overcome the pain and the grief and the anxiety that these things bring them. Thank you for my brother Kevin, and I pray that you will continue to use him, Lord, to touch lives and to bring about healing in so many different ways. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Gentlemen, thank you once again, and please know that not because Mental Health Awareness Month is coming to an end, does it mean that this discussion comes to an end. The discussion goes on, and as long as I can reach you, believe me, you will get a call.
Thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure. You guys have a great rest of your night. Blessings to you, and please thank your family for allowing me to steal your
I will
away.
do. I'll be sure. I'll be sure to tell the wife that.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Take care. Good night.
Bye, son.
God bless you.
God bless.
Take care there, doctor.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I probably should take a break right about now, and then we come back in and go into our musical therapy. Yeah, I should, but we're gonna go straight into it. I'm sure everybody will forgive me under the circumstances, right? This is the sound of Dale Brown and Truth. The track is called He Knows.
You know, I thought I could hide from you, but you see my scars and you see my flaws. You see everything I tried to do, Lord. I thought I could cover up my face, but behind the smile I'm a broken child. You see, I've done some things I can't deny. Even though they say I'm a lost cause and there's no hope for me, He knows my heart, He knows my mind. May have done some wrong, but just trust my heart when I sing this song. He knows my heart, He knows me. I used to watch all my siblings cry, but I had to stay strong while they carry on and speak with confidence and make sure my feelings high. Walk around with my chest all high. Hey, see, I even go to church and I get involved. I try to be that child that my mama them won't deny. Even though they say I'm a lost cause and there's no hope for me, He knows my heart, He knows my mind. May have done some wrong, but just trust my heart when I sing this song. He knows my heart, He knows my mind. Been misunderstood, they tried to count me out, they didn't know I could, but He knows my heart, He knows my mind. When you see me cry, know I've been through stuff, so don't ask me why, cause He knows my heart, He knows me. He knows me. He knows me. He knows me. He knows. My God knows. He knows me. They say I'm a lost cause and there's no hope for me, He knows my heart, He knows my mind. May have done some wrong, but just trust my heart when I sing this song. He knows my heart, He knows me.
This is the sound of Tamara Brown.
I never cease to praise Him, even though my bills are way overdue.
Jah got me covered.
I never cease to praise
9 minutes to the top of the hour as we roll out. This is our musical therapy.
And even when I find my
This is how we close off the night shift week this week.
I lift my head up high and say, pray.
6 minutes to the top of the hour. This is the sound of Mr. Vegas. From the album Soul Therapy. This is He Walks With Me. I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging out with me this week. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your contribution all around. I just want to remind you to look out for someone in your community today, because it only helps you in the long run. And your community is not just the development that you live in, but it spreads far and wide. So those that you pass on the bus, on the plane, on the boat, on the train, whether you walk, ride, or drive, these are members of your community. Do something good for one of them today, because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. And at the end of the day, try to be good. But if you can't be good, just try to be good at it. Leaving you with the sound of Levi. This is called Feel You. Partnering up with Dwayne Bennett from the group King. I'm out of here until Monday. You enjoy your weekend. Make it count, yeah? Remember, Sir Rockwell kicks it off tomorrow morning at 7. And I do the drive-by at 10:15, 10:20 thereabouts. Catch you later.
Your face so clear that the ray of sunshine would appear. You are holy, you are great, an awesome wonder. I am here at your feet, asking you to show me your face so clear that your glory would appear. You are holy, you are great, and awesome wonder.
moment is priceless, consider the ability to share that moment. If you can video it, you can broadcast it. And Pulse E-Media Group has the tools you need. Weddings, birthdays, funerals, graduations, church services, parties, seminars, you name it. Pulse E-Media Group can provide you with a secure medium controlled by you to broadcast your event. Contact us at www.pulseemediagroup.com for more information. Pulse E-Media Group, when being in the moment is priceless.